I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Arlington School Committee.
Recording in progress.
2026. Tonight's meeting is being conducted in person and through the use of Zoom. This meeting is simultaneously broadcast on ACMi, and the meeting is being recorded. All of our members are present, so we will be taking the voice votes unless a roll call is required. We do not have any public comment tonight, I don't think. Jenna, did you want to give any news from the ADA?
No, we're all good. Happy to be here.
She can't hear. I'm actually talking to Sean right now.
Oh, she can't hear us.
She can't hear us?
You can hear us, but you can't. She's muted. She's muted, okay. She can hear us. Jenna can.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I can hear you.
We can't hear you. Something's up with the audio.
We can't hear you. What do I do? Continue? Wait. Pause. We're going to take a pause. Does anyone want to say anything while we're taking a pause?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, I can hear you on the back of me. I can hear her in the control room.
The next part of the meeting is a presentation by Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Good, okay. Welcome, Jenna. Good to see you. Glad you're here.
Hi.
Okay.
Good to see you.
You can hear her?
Yep, we can hear her.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Zach, go ahead. Let's hear from what's happening at Arlington High.
All right. Pretty well professional, so we will get an update. First, we have our February Citizen and Staff of the Month. For our Citizen of the Month, we have Nora Chan, who's a cross-country athlete. She knows someone who's caring, thoughtful, and dedicated, a peer and teammate who never lets a moment when she makes no one notice. She's a natural gift for noticing when something is off with those around her, consistently checking in and making sure her peers feel seen and supported. One of the most unique and heartwarming things that she does is her tradition of making handmade birthday cards for everyone she cares about, regardless of how well she knows them. And as one nominator puts it, she is genuinely the nicest person I've ever met. For our Staff of the Month, we have Ms. Collier. Ms. Collier works tirelessly to make sure her students are understanding the material, whether that means giving a few extra minutes to take question breaks, checking with each student individually about their questions. The students also attest to her bubbly and cheerful personality, which makes it really fun in her class. She's always sharing books that she's reading and trips that she's going on, and some students noted how she threw a going-away party for all of the international students. One fellow staff member also attested to how she's always loved to help out teachers, and she possesses all the qualities that make her not only a amazing teacher, but a good person.
There's a loud buzz on there.
I think we're having audio issues.
So Zoom works great.
Well, we're hearing that they can't hear Zach online too.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. We had to get some technical issues addressed. We're all safe. Zach, go ahead.
All right, we have 2 more slides.
Do you want to do Miss Collier again, just in case
Yeah, let's
nobody heard
do
her?
Miss Collier again. I mean, that's,
All right.
yeah, give her due.
Yeah, so Ms. Collier is known to work tirelessly to make sure students understand the material, whether it means giving extra minutes to finish a quiz or checking with each student individually about their questions. Students also attest to her bubbly and cheerful personality, which makes it so fun to be in her class. She is known for sharing about the books she's reading or the trip she's going on,
She's also known for throwing a going-away party for the international students. And then her staff members attest to how she's always willing to help out fellow teachers, and she possesses all the qualities that make her not only an amazing teacher, but an amazing person. We're going to give just some recaps on some recent student council events. We had our third annual Winter Crafts Fair. It's kind of like Town Day, but a lot smaller. So we had like 42 vendors this year. So student clubs, we had some small businesses, Arlington businesses, and some local artisans. And we had a student band that was playing music for that. So that was super fun. Each year it's been going a little bit, so it's nice to show off the building as well. A lot of the people walking in were really admiring the building. And then last weekend we had our MASC conference, which is Massachusetts Association of Student Councils. So that's the state conference for all the student councils. We send a group every year just so we can like connect with other councils, get some ideas, learn how to grow our student council back home. And like last year, we won the Gold Council of Excellence Award. That means we're the highest achieving level of the student council in Massachusetts.
That's great news.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Way to go.
For some more news, we have a kids night out event tomorrow at the student council. The student council is hosting. It's just like kind of babysitting large groups of kids. So we're trying to advertise towards all of our elementary schools and after schools and everything. We also have our AHS Mobile Polar Plunge coming up, which is a fundraiser for the Special Olympics. This got bumped back towards March 31st because our last day, there's a snow day, so we had to move it. I think we have over $5,000 raised so far for Special Olympics, which is the same organization that we do like the unified basketball, unified bocce ball, all of that. On to sports. Track is sending a team to nationals right now. Our boys hockey team lost in a tragic overtime game last Sunday. Yeah, in the game to go.
In
then-
the semifinals, you should say.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
state tournament, they were the top 4 in the state.
Yeah. And then on March 27th and 29th, the high school is having a musical, which is Jane Eyre. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach, and we apologize for some of the interruptions. Does anyone have any questions for our student representative? Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, sir. Great job. Great presentation. We always appreciate it. Next, we're going to move on to discussion and hopefully approval of the budget, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Holman and Mr. Schweitzer.
Okay, hold on one moment. Get myself organized. I actually think Mr. Schweitzer is going to kick us off this
Okay.
evening. We're bringing you a revision of the FY27 budget. Our agenda will include updates on the yes on override budget, the no on override budget, and then a number of updates that I intended to put right after that on some of the details just of the changes and adjustments that we've made, and then we'll have some discussion. So, Mr. Schweitzer, go ahead.
Thank
Hold on
you.
a sec. Let me fix the, I don't know why it's doing that. Make sure everybody can see the whole screen. Okay, I think that's
It's the
the full slide.
It's the full
Great.
slide,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Great. So this is just a summary slide for us to get started off here today. So this is reviewing the financial information at the highest level. We've had this chart in the last couple public meetings and even before we presented the budget a month ago today in February. So just to start here before we get into the other slides. So what we're working with here are 2 budget scenarios. One in the event that the override does not pass here at the end of the month, and then one if the override does pass. In the result of no on the override, or what we're calling scenario B, throughout the budget book and through these slides, we would be level funded. So we are budgeting FY27 at that same 26 allocation of $103.6 million. And then if the override does successfully pass at the end of the month, or scenario A, it would result in a 4% increase or a little over $4 million over last year's budget. So you will see those icons of kind of that red for B, the no on the override, and the A, yes on the override. You'll see here, as we've consistently been doing throughout the book and prior presentations, we'll kind of review scenario A first, and you'll see that icon on each slide, and then we'll move on to scenario B, and again, you'll see that icon. Those two icons are also used throughout the budget book as well to help guide you read those. So all the way back in the fall, as we were launching the budget process for FY27, right at the beginning of the process, we obtained some input from school committee and from other stakeholders on setting our criteria for what the reductions and efficiencies would be within the FY27 budget development process. So some of the items that were considered were ensuring that we're staying focused on and investing towards the implementation of our strategic plan, that as we're looking at reductions and efficiencies, we're trying to minimize the impact those reductions would have on the student experience, that we'd be distributing those reductions as evenly as possible throughout the whole entire district to ensure some sort of stability as well as sustainability of program offerings throughout the district. And then last is to be creative, open-minded, and think outside the box and creatively for all opportunities for various reductions and efficiencies. So this slide has been presented, I think, the last two presentations as well as during the last two public forums. I think it's a great summary chart to kind of give context for the rest of the presentation. So this slide was added to kind of communicate why we're looking at a budget of a 4% increase, a budget increase of over $4 million, and why we're still looking at a budget in the yes scenario of potential reductions and efficiencies. What we have built out here, and I'll detail it a little bit more on the next slide, but essentially when we're looking at that $4 million increase, if we take our current staff that we have today, step in COLA and move them to next year, that contractual increase is actually over that $4.1 million by about 28,000. So if we're looking at no efficiencies, no reductions, no planned retirements, salaries alone are going to eat the budget increase that we have before us. As well as operationally, we have increases there that are just baseline regardless of each override scenario. So those are going up more than 2 or 3 or 4%, and those are detailed a little bit further within the prior presentations we've had, and I'll talk about some more of those today. But essentially, it's within this framework that we're looking at a budget, strategically looking at different initiatives and working within the confines that I just talked about for reduction criteria, evenly between salaries, as well as still investing within some of our operational needs. So this next slide kind of adds on the feedback that we had from prior communications. So we kind of spoke to it, but we just wanted to visually show it here in the change summary. Particularly, the biggest change here is in that middle chart there about the year-over-year increases for salaries. So backing into that, again, over $4 million baseline contract increase, that's the jump from the $89.1 million number. That's our current year contract salaries. Everyone stepped in COLA, no reduction, just level service next year is that 93.3. Kind of backing in, offsetting the adds within operations, that is where there's a requirement of kind of the $1.8 million in various efficiencies and reductions. So on your budget book, I believe it's pages 24 and 25 for the yes scenario, and then the no right after it. We've detailed in the past, but backing into that $1.8 million is the actual detailed listing. So there's some efficiencies such as recognizing retirements, consolidation of roles, and then as we've discussed in a lot of prior meetings, some of the reductions within personnel as well.
Okay, Mr. Schweitzer and I are going to go back and forth a bit for the next few slides. What we're going to highlight tonight, we're not going to go through the change sheet in detail, but it's available in all of your materials, in the book as a separate file on one meeting, so folks can go and look at that if you want a quick summary of what is in the current budget proposal. But what we're going to show for personnel and operational changes, instead of going through each thing on the change sheet, is just the change from the original proposal. So we have reinstated the weekly ACE planning block in the new proposal. We had, and I'll talk a little bit more about what sort of the original proposal had and what this one has in it, but we had reduced specialists according to a model that would have had us do the ACE planning block, which is a teacher planning block that where the students go to their 6 special per week. Teachers have a planning block. We were reducing that planning block by half, or 18 special sections. That restored when we sort of set the specials by grade level and thought about what the A specials would be, which we needed to do because there's a reduction to digital learning, which was one of the roles that offset some of the need in the ACE block. When we did that, we were able to add back 1.1 specialists to the budget overall. At AHS, OMS, and Gibbs, we have kept all staffing the same as what it currently is in ML. So that was an add back of 1.0. After some conversation with the school committee at our workshop last week, and with the town manager and with our chief information officer for the town, we will be reducing or eliminating a deputy director of information technology. This level sets the IT department with the same sort of leadership structure and levels as the facilities department in town. It is a currently vacant position, and both the town manager and the CIO fully understood why we might want to consider not backfilling that role given the situation that we are in and the fact that the IT team has been functioning exceptionally well over the last few years under Ms. Shepherd's leadership. So we have gone ahead and eliminated that in the yes scenario. It was already eliminated in the no scenario. In central office, we have adjusted what was some reductions to provide a little bit more support in enrollment should we need backup. So we used to have 2 registrars. That position was eliminated in a prior version of the budget, as well as a position in the finance office. We've taken those 2 positions and made them 1 position. And so the difference is just in salary. There is some savings associated with that. The 3,000 is a little confusing there. Hold on, I'm thinking. It should be a reduction. It should be less dollars, not more. So I need to double check that. It should be correct on the change sheet because it all added up correctly. But essentially what is happening is 2 positions are becoming 1, and it will be a shared role. Enrollment as a function will be living sort of with data between operations and the superintendent's office. And this role will be able to provide some backup both to the business office as well as to the superintendent's office with some of the enrollment analysis that we do in registration, and will be a Unit C role. So there are positions coming out of the budget that are not Unit C. This position is Unit C. It's an addition of a Unit C position. But it's a reduction of 2 positions that are not. We corrected some allocations because we discovered that we had allocated for bus drivers for athletics in the administration category of that budget, and we had charged to this year to the contractual salary, or the lines that we charged the stipends out of in athletics. So what we had done when we built the budget was we had rolled all of that over, but we don't actually need to budget for transportation for athletics in 2 places. We had doubled that up. So we eliminated the double up, and that was extremely helpful because we found $90,000 as a result. We also went through and did some audits of how we were calculating longevity and all additional pay. We have budgeted less in non-contractual pay for next year overall, but we did find as we were going through the budget that we had a couple places where we had accidentally duplicated some longevity for staff members who maybe have left and been replaced. There's no issue with payroll here. This is how the formulas were calculating as we were building the budget. So we also discovered an issue in a salary table that helped us find that we had duplicated a differential. So by accident, just in how we were calculating the salaries for our paraprofessionals at a certain tier of the salary table. Yep.
Should all these be negative?
No, they're positive. Except the 3,000. I think 3,000 is supposed to be minus, but
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at it. No, but that's a positive back into the budget, 90,000,
Okay.
and a positive back into the budget, 320,000.
But the first item is
Yeah,
spending coming out of the budget.
right, they're not consistent.
Yeah.
They're not internally consistent. Because the
You're right.
minusing the person is a negative. But it should be
from the prior.
savings.
No. If you think about it, amount change from the original proposal,
Okay.
this makes sense.
Except for the central office, 3,000. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Because the original proposal did not have the reduction of the deputy director.
Right, but,
The original proposal had more of a reduction to ACE planning block, so that 108 is spending. It's an
Right.
add back in.
but we should be saving money, so that
The
number.
bus
the
driver
bus-
and the longevity.
Those should be negatives, yeah.
Actually, I think that if you're doing it that way, I think IT should be positive, because that money's back in. I mean, we're not spending it.
Right, from the original budget, it does make sense. I've managed to confuse us, and I am sorry about that. The
Okay.
change sheet is the thing to look at. Would you rather I just pull that up?
Yeah, sorry.
Give me a minute.
Right.
I was using Mr. Cardin's from our subcommittee comparison that he had done. And maybe I should not have used that. All right, do you have updated ones in one meeting? The change sheets?
If you, probably not the individual slides, but if you pull up the budget book, I can tell you what page.
I know what page it's on. Hold on.
Where you can pull up the emails.
Yep, I got it.
I think going through these items still works, just ignore the positive and negative for now.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse folks, so we'll do it this way. Okay, let me zoom in. Okay. So there is a consolidation. It is overall in the, compared to FY '26, there is a reduction of 1.0 in registration and finance. We are putting two roles together from 2.0 to 1.0 to create a combined role in operations that will support the business office as well as backup for registration and enrollment. We have reduced the deputy director of IT. The rest of this is the same.
Can you just, for clarity's sake, like highlight the ML learner elementary so that people know what they're looking at?
So the elementary ML reduction is the same as for the prior version. And those are currently vacant positions. And I'll talk a little more about ML and caseloads and stuff in a little bit. We have added back, so it's not here on the change sheet because it's the same as previously, the ML roles at secondary. So it's not on here because there's not a reduction at secondary, right? Now, the change is that there was and now there's not. And for specialists, the reduction was 3.4, it's now 2.3. The change is plus 1.1. Does that make sense? That's why the slide had it that way. We also captured the retirement savings in the new change sheet, so you can see what that difference is for the budget. We had it sort of built in before, but I understood that it wasn't super clear, like exactly how much we were saving from retirement, so we added it here so it was a little more visible. Mr. Schweitzer, do you want to talk through operations?
Sure. Can we go back to the slides?
We can,
We can.
at your own risk.
The only reason we go back to the slides is because I think with the slide we were to review and what you'll see here is I kind of only highlight 3 lines. So kind of methodology here for scenario A and then scenario B for operations is just to highlight what's different from a month ago. So if you look back at this table or these 2 charts that look at operations from February 12th, what has changed? So there's only 3 of the lines that had changed. One is just in the last month, just a minor change within transportation for a particular student. So I've just, with that knowledge, I've reflected that here. The increase here on finance is just an additional $25,000. So again, the only change from the last time is just reviewing our current inventory as we're getting towards kind of the end of our current contract with our copiers. There's some of our equipment that's kind of depreciating a little bit faster than others. We may have reduced machines, but then the ones we have are being utilized maybe a little bit more. Part of our strategic plan is reducing the amount of paper, the amount of devices, but when we have fewer devices, everyone's going to that one. So there's just a little bit of money to potentially have in case we're going to replenish certain machines a little bit earlier and kind of enter into a new lease with those machines. There's a little safety there. And again, the bottom one is just the nominal number, but again, it's a change from a month ago. So just want to highlight that here.
At your own risk, this looks different than the ones I'm looking at in one meeting.
Yeah, so this doesn't mirror your budget book. Your budget book still shows 1.3 for out of district and such. This is just,
See?
there is, yeah, so the slides were focused
No, not
on
this-
changes.
The slides.
This is the
Yeah,
budget book.
Not this, but the slides.
Yeah, so for example, the top line is 1.325. I think it was 1.305 a month ago. So I'm just noting a nominal change here. More of the changes are probably to speak on the B scenario. There's no significant change here if we want to move on. Okay.
Yeah.
So just wrapping up kind of this section before we go to the no scenario. This, I just wanted to bring back to your attention. So this was presented on February 12th, just kind of in context of the different transfer categories of cost centers within the budget. So embedded within your motion, if there were no changes, but if there are, it would be within these individual cost centers. So embedded within your motion are per policy, those 6 individual transfer categories that we'd be working within next year. So just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention here that embedded within that $107.7 million budget number, the monies are within these 6 different categories. So just moving on again, now we're moving on to scenario B. So this is in the event of a failed override. Just systematically, again, this is presenting that change within the change summary, specifically there in the middle. So this is breaking out again that just baseline level service for our current staff would have increased a little over $4.1 million. But backing into now a budget that doesn't have the additional $4 million budget, there's significantly more reductions and efficiencies on the staffing or salary side that has been detailed in the prior presentations, and then some of the changes that have taken place over the last couple of weeks will be detailed a little bit further on by the superintendent.
Okay, nope, I'm afraid of this one, so we're gonna talk about this one. Okay, so on the no override scenario, there are not a lot of significant changes. The ones that we made to the yes scenario, we also made in some cases to the no scenario. So we did the same role consolidation for registration and finance. We did the same reduction to the deputy director of IT that is currently vacant. We've also indicated on the change sheets which roles amongst those that are being reduced are currently vacant. We still have at secondary, in the event of a no vote, a 1.0 reduction to ML at the secondary level. And the reduction for ML elementary stays the same in the no override scenario. For specialists, this actually retains as well the ACE at the every week in the no override budget. So at this point, there's no plan to adjust ACE in the yes or the no. In terms of how much ACE would happen, the only reason this number is higher than the yes override budget in terms of how much is reduced is because there would be fewer sections in that scenario, and so there would be more of a reduction to specialists in that scenario. Everything else in the no override budget on the personnel reductions is the same.
No, I'll just stay here.
Stay here.
Yeah. So the same thing's true from the last one, flow here. The one that I wish to highlight is the second from the bottom is the utilities. So one of the things that we had discussed over the last couple meetings and dove into a little bit more last meeting was particularly the revolving account balance from the rentals that was planned to offset the operating budget. Within the yes scenario, it was $750,000 from rentals was to offset some of the utility costs, pay for the custodians to work the overtime for those details, part of the cleaning contract, some of our custodial cleaning supplies. Originally, when we presented back in February, in the no scenario, it was only $500,000. So it was a little bit more conservative. It wasn't taking as much of an offset into the budget. We've since aligned those so that in both scenarios, our facilities department is being offset by the exact same amount. So in scenario A and B, we're both taking a $750,000 offset from the building rentals, and that was updated as of the 28th meeting. But just want to reflect this here, that this is a change. If you look at the budget book from the 12th of February to today's budget book, that is a change, but those two are now aligned.
Transfer categories?
Same thing, but just on scenario B, that upon proving if scenario B, that motion for tonight would be, again, level funded to last year's budget, or the year we're currently in, at 103.6. And you can see here visually FY '27 what the sum of those transfer categories would be.
Okay. I'm going to give some additional details and updates about some of the changes that we made with a little bit more sort of data to explain the why behind them, as well as some of the why behind the reductions in the first place and some of the decision-making that went into that. And unfortunately, though, I need to start with an update on Title I, because we've received a number of updates over the last week or so. The federal government received preliminary census data and has passed that along to the state. And they've told the state that there was a 10% drop in Massachusetts' share of the national poverty level. And that because of that, the state should anticipate a significant decrease to the Title I award from the federal government for FY '27. And that reduction is about $30 million to the state allocation from Title I. That constitutes about a 10% reduction to Title I. We have had more low-income students as defined by Massachusetts' definition for low income. Massachusetts' definition for low income is different than the federal definition. Our definition is 185% poverty level. The federal definition is 100%. So we are more generous in our designation of low income. Despite that, it is worth noting that Massachusetts has noted that Arlington has had more students designated as low income under the Massachusetts bar for that measure over the past 5 years. And we may not be found Title I eligible next year based on the data the state has given us as of late last week. The state's preliminary analysis puts Arlington within 1% of that eligibility line, along with a number of other communities in the state, some of which are similar in terms of size, demographic to us and are nearby. So what the state said is that if your district is projected based on preliminary figures to be hovering around that funding stream eligibility threshold, then they suggest that we develop one budget plan for if the district remains eligible and a separate plan for the possibility that it loses eligibility. They told communities this well after a number of communities had already voted their budget and less than a week before we're sitting here today. So, retooling to make a completely new separate plan in the event that these funds are not available wasn't really possible. We do have a warning label for the basic grant, which would mean a total loss of $163,000 in Title I funding if we're not found eligible. They also said that if you are found eligible, you can anticipate a 15% decrease to your funding, which would put us around $135,000 if we do receive an allocation. Arlington had 5 schools who qualified for Title I services and support and supplemental funding this year, and we have found over the last few years that it's increasingly difficult for us to keep the same model of Title I support with more schools identified. So we were already planning on not putting like FTE salaries on the grant because it's too hard to spread that across 5 schools. And we were going to prioritize summer programming and after-school supports like tutoring on the grant anyway. And so you'll notice that we've eliminated all Title I roles from both scenarios in terms of the FTEs. We're exceptionally hopeful we will receive an allocation. If we do, then we will put that towards summer programming, and we will put that towards other supports that provide a little bit of a boost, maybe after school with some tutoring for students or other programming that we might be able to do immediately after the school day. We're really not sure, and I'm not sure when we'll know whether or not we'll receive an allocation. This doesn't impact summer school for this year, Title I summer programming for this year. It will impact it for FY27 if we don't receive an allocation. And obviously, this reduces some of the resources in our schools at the very moment where we're reducing resources in our schools. So it's difficult news to hear, and is another $100,000 hit to the budget plus. So that is the plan for Title I. At the moment, we will discuss this as a team and bring back some more details as we receive them and updates from the state as we receive them as well. I also wanted to talk about the specialist reduction that is in the budget. Just a reminder, and I'm going to try to talk through this a little slowly just so that folks who are interested in this particular item, we've received some emails and questions about this over the last couple of weeks, sort of have a full picture of what the determination was surrounding specials and ACE and all of that. So currently, our students have 6 specials a week. They have their standard 5, which happen usually at around the same time of day, and then they have a 6th one day a week. They will have 2 specials on that day. Those specials rotate by quarter. Currently, it includes a range of offerings, and the current model has students taking 216 total specials per school year. The current proposal maintains this model, but it makes some slight adjustments to the plan to build in some consistency during that 6th ACE block. So in kindergarten through 2nd grade during the ACE block, we've prioritized art, music, and health. There will be library classes also during that ACE block when there are 4 sections at the school, which is only in a couple places. Grade 3 will have music during the ACE block, and grades 4 and 5, art and library is prioritized. It's possible that a PE or another special music makes its way in, depending on the number of sections at the school and what works out in the schedule. So these are placeholders. The numbers in the budget right now are placeholders so that we can go build a schedule and so that we can work with the staff to figure out what a supportive schedule might look like. Once we have that built, it's possible there will be a little bit of an adjustment, 0.2 here or there, but the allocations that are in the budget right now by school are there to make sure that we have what we need allocated by sections. So there's no change to the proposed model to what students receive in school every day in terms of the specials that they go to during the regular week. There are still 216 total specials per year, 36 ACE specials per year, and 9 per quarter, though we're looking at a trimester model, depending on what we can work out in the budget. I want to explain why we have really looked at this with so much detail and scrutiny, and why we are still proposing that there is a reduction in specialists for FY27. This really is driven by anticipated changes in elementary, and there are anticipated changes moving forward, and there have been changes over the past several years. So in that new proposal, we've put these back, but I did want to point out this graph that we've shared this several times. Right here where this red arrow is, this was the elementary enrollment when full-time specialists were implemented. And then here, this is the elementary enrollment right now. So when we first implemented full-time specialists at every single building, we had over 3,000 elementary school students. And right now we have 2,740 projected for FY27. So when we did this, we only had about 1.5 years of ACE implementation before the pandemic disruption. During the pandemic, we didn't have, like, when schools closed and then for the whole following year, we weren't able to sustain that ACE model. We returned in 2021 and 22. So some of the comparisons that I've done are with 21, 22, just because our section data starting then is different in the system. There's a little bit more reliability to the section data. So I started with the year we came back from the pandemic and started doing ACE again. So there are 408 fewer students at the elementary level in FY27 than there were when ACE was first implemented. And when you compare against the year that ACE came back into the schedule, there are about 250 fewer students at the elementary level. When you're building an equity-driven staffing model, then for roles that your staffing model says it's appropriate for, you need to base sections, specials, and service provision on enrollment and caseloads. There are a few exceptions to this rule that I think the community may want to discuss moving forward. I would always suggest that roles like libraries, which you want to remain open, assistant principals and administration, coaching, roles that generally are supporting either adults or supervising a space that you want to keep open all day are not necessarily subject to a ratio rule. But for the most part, we have tried to build a budget that keeps enrollment in mind and puts the resources where the students are. With the staffing flexibility we've had over the past few years, we have expanded adaptive classes for SLCs. All of those remain in both of the current budget proposals, so we haven't reduced or eliminated any of the SLC support that we have built in because we've had the room in the staffing model to support that over the last few years. We didn't want to lose that opportunity. So this chart compares the sections in the school in FY22 to the sections in the school in FY27. And then it calculates the number of specialist classes per week when we have 6 specials in the week. So this is how many specials run at the school in a week with those sections allocated the way they are. So compared to FY22, when that 6th ACE special returned after the pandemic, we've done a number of things. We added the adaptive specials, we reduced general education sections based on enrollment. They're up by approximately 10, so we had 148 sections overall in FY22. We have 137 sections slated for FY27 at the moment. The number of specialist sections decreased everywhere fairly significantly, except at Thompson. So this column here multiplies 19 by 6, essentially. Where there are, on this side, SLCs involved, it adds the SLC count on to the total. So essentially this column and this column are multiplying the number of sections by 6 because that's how many specials each section would have. And so how many sections would need to happen in a week for the kids. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that total reduction of 31 after you add in the adaptive classes for our students in the SLCs is a pretty significant reduction, and that's what's driving the reduction in specialists because it recalibrates to meet the schedule and the sections for all of the schools. So here is the original proposal that had the reduction of ACE by half, and this is it says current FTEs, but it's the FTEs in that original proposal, and then this is the new proposal here. So we went up by 0.5 in art, roughly. We went up by about 0.5 in music, roughly. PE is the same after we prioritized by grade level and looked at the number of sections that we would have. I also wanted to point out that library stays full-time. So there is some room. There's not a whole lot of room, but there is some room for travel, for assignment of specials to make a schedule operate, and there is room in library. So if we needed to, we could assign an additional section to the library. The drawback with that becomes that the librarian can't collaborate on a lesson in the classroom with the grade level or necessarily have students come in and check out a book while they're teaching a class. We can schedule specials in the library if we need to, and that space is available. So this is the new proposal, and again, these are placeholders. So the rule really overall is that we have this as enough that we can cover all of the specials, not that we have it exactly at that exact FTE level. I also wanted to talk about ML reductions in caseloads. We revisit ML staffing every year after we do access testing and see how many students qualify at each school. So this is the current allocation. It could move. We did adjust a little bit, moving about 0.5 that was originally allocated to Thompson to Pierce because of the caseload, so that we could even the caseloads out. There are tables like this in the back of the budget book. We added what is essentially a schedule that shows the ratios for specific roles of staff against the students that those roles would serve. It's based in October 1 numbers, but the ML caseloads are based in the most recent numbers that we were able to pull down from the state, just to make sure that we built some appropriate caseloads for the students. So in the original proposal, we had reduced at the secondary level. The caseloads are lower at the secondary level, and that's fairly typical, especially after we add back some of that staffing. So the average caseloads, you'll be able to see here, 13.5, 12.5, 11. All of them are going to be under the 30 mark that we wouldn't want it to go over necessarily in the yes scenario as well as in the no scenario. Okay. I just wanted to note a couple of things about how the budget book is organized. The position schedules are showing staffing by location and department. We've allocated all resources directly to schools unless they're shared across more than 2 locations. As a general rule, and this is what we shared with the administration when they asked about how to allocate dollars within their budgets, within their schools, student-facing resources should be allocated directly to schools whenever possible, and that includes staffing. So that's why the staff are organized the way they are in the budget. District-level budgets contain adult-facing resources, so the departmental budgets at the district level have resources for professional development, for pulling in providers if we need some specialized professional development support from a consultant, and those district-level budgets also contain operational resources and rules that serve the entire district. There's also that ratio schedule that I mentioned at the end of the book. That's a tool for assessing resource allocation as transparently as we possibly can. There are a number of caveats there. I don't think you should ever reduce a role to how it divides out amongst the kids, really. Like it's not the only data point that we should use. And it is exceptionally helpful to be able to compare by school how we have allocated the resources to account for what the kids need. And we have a number of data points that we can use to do that. And this is the first time we've been able to very judiciously, very carefully go through every line of the budget and make sure that we have the right number of special educators at the school, the right number of paraprofessionals at the school, the right number of administrative support personnel, operational personnel, ML teachers, all of it. So we've been really careful about making sure that the allocation is appropriate to the need, to the number of students. And I want to thank everybody who's been a part of that work, because it has been a long time that we have been working and striving towards being able to do that reliably and validly. And we're pleased that we were able to do it this time. I'm going to have a few remarks in a minute, but I just wanted to review where we're at in the process. We had our hearing last week. We were right here seeking approval from the school committee of the new proposals. We will go to Finance Committee on Monday. And then we will have the override vote in just a couple of weeks. So to close out, I'd like to point out a couple of things. We in Arlington have been doing a lot of work over the last few years to improve outcomes for students. And this has been a haul, getting to the point where we were ready with a budget we felt good about to present to the committee and to the community. I just want to point out, and these are data that are pulled from the DESE website's radar tools, and they provide updated on a routine basis comparison districts by demographics and by wealth characteristics. And so these are all of the districts that the state believes that we compare to by both demographics and wealth characteristics. A number of them are Town Manager 12, the districts we typically compare ourselves to. Some of them are not. But I just wanted to point out that our percent meets exceeds in 2024. This wasn't even last year when we were honored by the state, which I'll speak to in a minute. But in 2024, this is Arlington right here, with 76% of our students meeting or exceeding standards compared to these similar districts by demographics and wealth. And this is math. And we are outperforming a number of our peer districts. And that's because of the incredible work that our educators are doing in the classroom, our leaders are doing to support them, our operational teams are doing to make sure that they can focus on that important work. And we're doing all of that despite the fact that compared to all of those same districts, in large part, we're kind of middle of the pack, if not lower middle of the pack, when it comes to per pupil expenditures. We make a lot of the resources that we have here in Arlington. We make sure that those dollars are going to the kids. We make sure that we are paying our teachers and our leaders competitively so that we can attract and retain the best talent. So I want to offer a few reflections as we close out and look forward to some discussion. This has been a journey, and I want to begin by thanking the school committee and the community for the work that's been done to inform the development of two very challenging plans for next school year. To the school committee, thank you for asking hard questions, sometimes repeatedly, to make sure that we turned over every leaf, looked in every corner, and considered every option available to us. I want to thank you for listening to and valuing our expertise as educators as you voiced the needs and expectations of your community. I want to thank you for knocking on doors, answering questions, and being fearless community ambassadors for our schools every day. Your work as board members is not easy. You put in countless hours, and you have to make difficult decisions in public without the benefit of living in our educator weeds all day long. And the hours you dedicate to this work are immense. The thanks are often meager. So I want you to know how much we and I appreciate your support and dedication to our schools and your commitment to public education. For the Arlington community, you have a choice before you on March 28th, and it's not an easy one. I'm not allowed to weigh in on that decision, besides to offer information that I hope will inform your individual and collective decision-making. We have done everything as a school system in our power to provide all of you with a clear picture of our trajectory, regardless of the outcome of the vote on the 28th, and we're grateful for the careful consideration that we know so many of you are dedicating to the important decision ahead of you. We've cut every corner we can without compromising programming or our values, and we're grateful for the immense support of the community and that the community has historically shown for the schools. We're also grateful for the participation of so many community members in the development and implementation of our strategic plan, for the parent groups who have helped us share information and weigh priorities, and for the trust that more and more of you have placed in us by sending your precious children to our schools every day. I'm really proud of the work we're doing in the Arlington Public Schools to make sure every student can thrive. When Commissioner Martinez called to inform me that Arlington was the largest community in the state to meet and exceed its pre-pandemic outcomes, I was honored and humbled and giddy with excitement, but I was not at all surprised. We told the community what we were going to do in 2022 and the values that would inform those actions. And we've done those things. And we've done them with fewer resources than our neighbors, with fewer resources than communities with similar tax bases, and with fewer resources than we needed to accomplish those lofty goals. And we accomplished them anyway, and it's working. More kids are more connected with school than they were 5 years ago. Achievement gaps are beginning to narrow because opportunity gaps are being minimized or eliminated. Where state outcomes are sliding, ours are improving. Our schools are joyful places. They are full of life and love and creativity. Our classrooms are led by teachers and assistants who are dedicated to their students and to continuously developing their practice. They are led by dedicated administrators who have spent months turning over scenarios and digging into spreadsheets so that they could advise me on the best path forward. Some of those leaders did that with professionalism and with students at the center of their deliberations, even when their own roles were in jeopardy of being eliminated. This process has reinforced a number of lessons for me that I think are important for all of us to remember in the weeks ahead. First, that struggle strengthens us when we allow ourselves to learn through it. The budget before you is a far better one than the one I presented 4 weeks ago. It preserves student programming and allocates resources sustainably and equitably. It's not perfect, but it is the most carefully constructed proposal that I have ever had the privilege to present to this committee. And that is only true because of the months-long process that we've engaged in and because of the work that we've done together. I'm also reminded that community stability and sustainability requires an ongoing recommitment to the difficult work of assessing whether and how our day-to-day actions are aligned with our values. If Arlington wants to continue to be a community that values education and that is able to make the most and a little bit more out of its resources and that is known for its long-term planning and progressive thinking, then that will require the community and institutional knowledge be passed down continuously, patiently, and deliberately. It requires us to commit to sustainable retention while embracing the possibilities of fresh ideas and opening doors for new voices to be part of that process, even when the process is unpleasant. I will not pretend for a moment that I'm looking forward to implementing either one of these two scenarios. But I can, and we will do so knowing that they preserve, at least for now, the resources that students need most, allocated in a way that balances caseloads as much as possible and maintains our commitment to inclusive learning environments that challenge and engage our students. We can do this knowing that we're on the right track, that we're implementing a plan that voters, elected officials, and our staff have repeatedly lined up to support and execute. And it's my genuine hope that the Arlington community sees that our schools are exceptional, our students are brilliant, and our staff give their whole hearts to their work for a paycheck that will forever struggle to keep up. It is my genuine hope that we might be able to continue what we have started in this very special community, and I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. That was very well said. And I appreciate all the words that you just put out there for the public to consider. We're now going to open it up to questions and comments from the members of the school committee. Would anyone like to?
One question.
Ms. Gittleson?
Yeah. I think there's still some confusion, or at least, we talked about this last week, but we heard 2 weeks ago from a number of ML teachers, some at the secondary level and at least one at the elementary level. And the perception that clearly people had was that the prior version, not tonight, reduced elementary ML services. And I think I understand that from the conversation we had last week that's either wasn't true or it's no longer true.
Right.
I just want to be really clear for people who heard those comments, like where we are with elementary ML education going forward.
So from what I understand, and I cross-checked this with the director because I just wanted to make sure I had everything right. We started the year with that 1.6. It's allocated in 26, so it's a reduction from the 26 budget. And we've had some vacancies pop up that we have not been able to backfill. So we've shuffled staffing around at the elementary level to fill that need. We had the room to do that because we had some caseloads that were lower in a couple of places. What the conversations last time we met prompted us to do was go back and look at current caseload, because there were a couple of statements that made me confused too, because it didn't sound like the caseloads that I knew we had in the fall were the same as what they were saying. And if you look at the DESE profile data and you look at the percentage of MLs against the percentage of this class, like school setting, it didn't match that either. And so what can happen at the beginning of a school year is if students join us and they get screened, then maybe they're identified as MLs. A good example is at Pierce, there's a big group of kindergartners that we ended up identifying as MLs. It's very possible that they learn quickly and aren't quickly considered language learners, and they're sort of integrated into the core classroom, but that doesn't mean they don't still need services. So the numbers can move throughout the year, and we have adjusted accordingly. This maintains the staff that are currently active in the system, and it reallocates some of those resources from both what we're doing now and what I had originally put into the budget. So what was originally in, like particularly Pierce is a good example that I'll rest on for a moment.
That's the school we heard from, so that's helpful.
That was allocated in the original budget at 1.0, and now it's 1.5.
Okay.
But Thompson was at 2.5, and they may be in a position where we need to think about moving something around from another school after we look at the access test and after we do registration. Right now they're at 2.0 based on current caseloads. So we put it in the budget according to current caseload, and part of why I said we will reassess is because we will reassess. We always do in the summer, just to see where access testing came in and what the registrations and enrollments are looking like, and if we need to shuffle some things around, we will. And if we need to look into adding some supports from some salary savings, if we have a vacancy or two here and there, we can do that too.
So bottom line is that the resources that we are currently devoting, like in actuality, not based on vacancies, to elementary ML, nothing's happening to them as a
Correct.
district-wide. And then the assessment is where do we need those services
Right.
based on caseload?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Anyone want to say anything?
No, I just want to start by saying thank you so much. I know how difficult this has been to develop these two budget scenarios, neither of which is pleasant, and the iterations and the time that you took to listen to us and make some of those changes that we discussed. I think I just want to say thank you. I think, following up on Ms. Gatelson's comments, I think that helps answer my first question, so thank you for that. Just a general comment I would say is, in a setting where we are anticipating potentially also losing Title I, some of these kids maybe are both of those groups, that, we take pause in kind of pulling back from, again, our most vulnerable students. So it's, just a general comment of whenever possible, I would love for our school committee and you to consider other ways to make cuts. And I know none of those are easy, but I think thinking about the overall context and the most vulnerable kids, again, with the possibility of Title I also going away and these kids losing, potentially having resources strained from multiple sites, is just considering all of those things together. And that, I think the DC data also suggests that there's actually, as opposed to lower elementary level students overall, that EL learners are actually increasing across 4 out of the 7 elementary schools. So I think, it's really important to, and I'm not saying that you and the principals and the schools are not doing this, but just, being really rigorous about that and making sure that we're not pulling back resources prematurely from students that really do need these supports.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Carden?
Questions? No, or comments?
Oh, comments, sir, please.
I have
The questions.
You have a question? Or what are the questions first?
question.
Dr. Allison Ampe.
I'm wondering about the retirement savings and how that was calculated. Just when I'm doing back of the envelope things, I'm coming up with, it seems high, what you've got.
So we reset all of the ones we were going to backfill to step 5.
Okay.
And so it's the difference between what their salary would have been in 27 had they not retired, and that step 5 salary that reset it to. And I don't think I added in the longevity that we took out. That was sort of separately accounted for. So that's just the base difference.
Okay. Great.
I guess, are there any other questions for Dr. Holman? Okay, comments, Mr. Carden.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris and Dr. Holman, for all your hard work over the last few weeks and scrubbing the numbers and getting us to a better place. So I just want to, again, present the sort of the bigger picture of where we are and why things are happening the way they are. With the level of retirements that we have, which is higher than it has been in the past, hopefully that will continue. We have a 4.1% increase in our salary budget. So that's still above what we're getting from the town, but not by much. So we do have to trim a little bit because of that. But the main reason we have to trim this year is because the non-salary items, and most of those, except for out-of-district tuition, and most of those actually are not increasing by a lot. It's just that they were under budgeted. So we're catching up, and we have to, as a result of that, we have to make some significant cuts. Hopefully, things will stabilize. I think there's more room in the budget than you all agree. But hopefully we'll see that next year. And then in our FY28 budget, we're still facing the 4% cap. We won't have to squeeze quite as much. That'll be a good outcome. We did have a discussion about some of this at budget where, if we squeezed some more, if we continue to look under every rock and squeezed out some more money, would we put back some of these positions, or would we keep them out because of this future issue? And I think we agreed that we would keep them out because of this future issue. There's been a lot of work in figuring out where we can shed positions without affecting students. And so I'm happy that we got to a place where we have a budget that does that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Schlickman, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I am very, very appreciative of this administration that showed tremendous talent in terms of working with the community to put together a very effective strategic plan that got us to the very high quality of education we're providing right now. And we are caught in an unfortunate position because of a ballot question that was passed in 1980. It was a very different time. The economy was stagnant. The tax rate, the first year that 2.5 took effect, was $22.70. Our tax rate this year is $10.67, the third lowest since 2.5 was instituted. What's happening is that there is a cap of 2.5% in our ability to raise our levy limit, regardless of what's going on within the value of the town or the income level of the town. And the costs are increasing far beyond 2.5%. The state has raised our minimum local contribution by about 5%. They've raised our foundation budget by about 5%. So that's an indication that the cost of providing an adequate education in this community is calculated by the state as around 5%. We've got an override before us that's going to give us 4%. So with a successful override, we're still going to be faced with cuts this year and the next 2 fiscal years. This is not easy. It is much more difficult to take things apart and to make reductions than it is to do the work we've done in the past few years of strategically planning to use our resources well to make improvements. And I know it's also disheartening for anybody who's working in the system to be within this context, which is why I just want to state my appreciation for the people who are working on this on behalf of the community, who put their heart and soul into this for this community. And I hope we have the best possible outcome and that the overall state fiscal picture changes for the better as we approach year 2 and year 3 of this fiscal stability plan.
Ms. Gittleson?
So, I want to start by thanking the superintendent and her staff for all the thought and care that went into developing these very difficult budgets. This has been a painful process all around. We are proud, rightfully, of what we have built in Arlington, and it is hard to let go of any piece of what has helped us get to this point. Because of the thought and hard work behind these budgets, I will be voting yes tonight, confident in what we have done and in what we can continue to do together. I also want to acknowledge the anxiety of our fiscal situation, the anxiety our fiscal situation has created for many of our teachers and staff. The uncertainty around budgets and staffing has been difficult for people who care deeply about their work and about our students. I am grateful that we have found a way to keep ACE Box every week and to maintain ML staffing where it has been. And I appreciate the advocacy that helped make that possible. At the same time, I do not underestimate the loss we will feel from not having full-time art and music teachers in every elementary school. I feel that deeply as a parent, and I wish we could have done more. I also think it's important to say out loud that inequities exist whether we maintain the status quo or make changes to these budgets. Reasonable people can disagree about how best to address those inequities, and those are important conversations for us to keep having, but those disagreements do not change the fiscal reality we are facing. As we look ahead to the next several years of tight budgets, which is likely to remain true even if voters support the override on March 28th, I hope we will have a thoughtful conversation about fees in Arlington Public Schools. If we are going to have that conversation, we should do it intentionally and thoughtfully, considering the issues of curricular connection, access and inclusivity, and long-term sustainability. These will not be easy conversations, but nothing we have done this year has been easy, and we've shown that we can do that. Finally, I want to thank everyone in the APS community who has shared their thoughts with us over the past weeks and months. We have heard from many teachers, which has been an important reminder of the work happening every day in our classrooms. We've also heard from many parents, which is an important reminder of who this is all about, our students. Thanks again to everybody who works in this amazing school district, and to my school committee colleagues for really thoughtful conversations. These decisions affect people and programs. I was not expecting to cry, that matter deeply to our community, and I want everyone to know that we take that responsibility really seriously.
Well done, well said. Would anyone else like to make any statements or comments? Okay, Ms. Exton?
I'm feeling very unprepared, but I just want to start by saying thank you to Dr. Homan and the rest of the administration for the tireless work that you have done for a very long time on this budget. I know that, early in October, perhaps before that, Dr. Homan has sat down with everyone, principals, to get their feedback, and I know how seriously she takes all of their feedback and the thinking, and I know that none of these decisions were easy for her to make, and I know that all of the emails that have come in from teachers and staff she takes to heart, and it is because of all of that that this district is so successful. And I think that, obviously I'm very hopeful that we go with the yes scenario, but either way, I know that this district and this school committee will come together to support staff and students to continue to be a very successful district. I also want to thank, and I said this last time too, it was the teachers that came and shared their thoughts about what they feel is important and how these changes are going to impact our schools. I think it's really important for us to hear from people and educators that are in the schools. I agree with Ms. Gittleson. I do think that we need to have a conversation about fees at some point. I think that it really is its own conversation. And as others have said, this is not the last time we're going to be having a challenging budget conversation. And so I think that fees need to become a part of that. Unless I suppose we have to implement them regardless, the no scenario. But I think that, in the end tonight, this budget is the work of most of the people in this room and a lot of people who aren't in this room. And I think that it represents the very best that we can offer our students and our staff in the Arlington Public Schools. In FY27. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would just, does anyone else want to say anything before? I just, to echo what was said by all of my colleagues, and especially Dr. Homan and Mr. Schweitzer, this process began, I think 6 months ago, I can be corrected. And so this has been a very inclusive process involving all of our schools, all of our school leaders, our union leadership, parents. We had a very largely, highly attended, well-attended public forum with lots of folks that came and spoke. We heard from many, many people. This has been probably the most, our processes of setting a budget are very transparent. They involve lots of different people. It's 6 months of work, lots of meetings by the budget subcommittee and by presentations by the school district staff, where we learn a lot about what people want in the budget. And we have, I think, done a good job of coming up with the best budget that we can, given the resources that we can work with. I think Dr. Holman made a couple of points that are really important I just want to reiterate. One is that our school district spends less per pupil than the statewide average and less than many of our competitors. We were, and in the most recent results, in the top districts in the state, in the MCAS results, we were one of the few districts that had test scores equal to or greater than our test scores prior to the pandemic. Very few districts achieved that, and we achieved that because the town of Arlington voted in a way to give us enough funding to support our students, and we spent the money wisely. And so that is an important point to understand. The results that we achieved in the classroom didn't happen because by accident. It happened because there was an investment by the town, and we allocated the investment by the town wisely. We gave it to our talented staff. We expended it with our talented staff, and the result was great test scores, great results for our students, higher performing students than many districts in the state. That's how it happens. It happens because you invest, you spend money, that is the taxpayers' money, and you get great results. If you don't do that, you don't have the resources, the results change. It's that simple. So I want to commend everybody in the district for the work they did. I want to commend the superintendent for leading this charge. It has not been easy, and I know she has put in a lot of hours, nights, weekends, given her texts and emails with questions. Whenever she's thinking of something, it comes up.
Sorry.
It's okay, I'm up. So I really do appreciate it, and I think the community should know that a lot of hard work went into this whole process. And so we're ready to vote. I think, I'm going to suggest a vote, and if there's better language, just let me know. I think the vote is simply, move to accept the recommended budgets of the superintendent under both a yes and no scenario. I think it's that simple, unless you guys want to make it more, make it better. Anybody? Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cardin, second by Dr. Allison Ampe. So I just saw her first. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I vote yes. It's a unanimous 7-0 vote. Thank you very much. Okay, the budget discussion is closed. Thank you for that. Now we're going to move to the district calendar review.
Okay.
Okay.
I have not had much of a chance to dig into this with Ms. Diggins, but Ms. Diggins has been collecting your feedback on the calendar for next year, and so we have uploaded that input, and our goal here is to ask for whether there is any more. Had you also uploaded the changes you had already made to 27, 28? Or 26, 27, sorry, which year are we in? 26, 27?
It's noted the ones that are in there. The comments I received were on an older calendar that wasn't uploaded yet.
Okay. So,
So those are indicated.
sorry, I'm trying to read this new agenda and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
We all
Okay.
are.
Sorry.
We're all over.
It's like, where did it go? Here it is. How do I download the? Okay. Okay, so you have first the 25-26 calendar that we're going to update, and this was mostly an FYI. It was just the adjustment based on the snow days that we have had. We're really going to hope, knock on wood, that we don't have more of those, because if we do, we're really kind of up against the end of June, and we start a little earlier next year, so we're rather not shorten the summer any more than we have to. But we anticipate that this will be the final calendar, and we'll probably give it about another week, and then go ahead and post that and send a message out to the community. So if you see any issues with the remainder of this year's dates, please do let us know. Is that that's the only attachment that's downloading for me, Ms. Diggins? Did you?
No, there are 2 other attachments. You don't see the other 2?
No, but it's probably me.
Yeah, I do.
I see the other two.
I got them too, yeah.
I think you might just have to,
Hold on.
If you keep scrolling, no? Four-page
It's not
document.
opening
We're looking at
that
the same
agenda
thing, a
item for
four-page
me.
document.
So it depends on how you click on it.
Oh, I
only
I got it.
recently figured
Okay.
I found
You
it.
can either put it all together, or you can get it as separate documents.
I just needed to keep scrolling. I got it all together apparently. Okay. Sorry, folks. We have a new platform to manage our meetings, and we're all struggling with it. So then after that, our comments received on the 26, 27 calendar from all of you, and she has noted the ones that we've taken care of already. We may have some questions about some of the other items, and then the rest of them are things that I still need to go through, and I'm going to work on that over the next couple of weeks. So if you see anything on there that you have questions about or that you want to add, please do send those notes along in the next couple of weeks, because we will be bringing a final calendar for next school year to you with some corrections, because we found that we had like a parent conference by Veterans Day that we need to move and a couple other things we need to tweak. We're also making sure that we get any conferences off of school committee nights, any sort of back to school events. I'm hoping we can maybe talk to the principals and figure out when we might want to hold those so that those are ready to go as well. So we're hoping to have another update on 26, 27 for you at the next meeting. I did also want to point out that next year is the first time that we will have students come back prior to, because it's a very late Labor Day, prior to Labor Day. I am very sorry that that happens to happen right after we had a brutal winter, because it does shorten summer a bit. But we are coming back on the 31st and the 1st for teachers, then doing 2 days with students before Labor Day next year. And so whenever we finalize this and send it out to families, we will also make sure that families know that that's the plan, so that they can plan accordingly. It's been posted, we've had these for a while, so hopefully families are aware of this, but we will make extra sure that it's extra explicit when we send these out. So do take a look. If you see anything that looks off or that you don't understand or that we probably need to adjust, please email Ms. Diggins. She'll add it to our list of commentary, but you can check the comments to see if it's already there.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Allison Ampe.
I just want to say, because I know it was a problem in the past, I did look specifically for conferences conflicting with school committee meetings, and the only one that happens is on November 5th, and that's an afternoon conference for elementary. So I don't think, to me, that doesn't sound like a problem.
If it's not an evening conference, it should
But
work.
another conflict is that the MASC conference is on the 5th, so at that, it's in the notes that that meeting actually is going to happen.
We're moving that one anyway. The other thing that I will probably talk to AA leadership about is that we are very crammed in conferences and days out in November. So November is a rough month, and so we may want to look at some adjustment to that. We have talked about the professional development day. However, that is a big election, and so we'll probably have a number of folks at the schools. It tends to be easier to do that when we don't have students present. So we're considering some options for November, and I want to have a couple more conversations about that, just to get some of the crowded things that have students out of school more out of that month, if we can.
In my house, we call it No School November.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's a hard time for there to be so much inconsistency for the students, so.
Questions, thoughts? One comment I'll make about the calendar. I know the sense of the committee is to try to make sure there's no conflicts with all these great activities we have in the town, in the schools. The one thing I do want to say is that a few folks have approached me to say that they feel, I don't know if this is an accurate feeling, but they feel as if they can't schedule any meetings on certain nights, like Thursday nights, in the high school. And hope that's not the case. I hope that's not a widespread feeling. But I just want to that we should keep that into account as we develop this calendar. That there are staff in the district who feel they cannot do anything on a Thursday night because of school committee meetings, and that is not the case. Correct?
Correct, because every other Thursday, there's not events, and we were very specific about the events that we were avoiding in the calendar recently. So I've not conveyed that in any way to anyone. I do think, we're also up against, there are folks who want to use, for example, this building, and they're hitting constraints because our students are using this building a lot. And so if they can't, rent or use certain spaces because there are student events in those spaces, then that could prove frustrating too. But I don't think that's a Thursday-specific issue.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just respond a little bit to that?
Yeah.
Okay, So I don't know when this was. On January 23rd, 2025, we approved dates for school committee meetings specifically in 2025, 26, 27, and 27, 28. And what ends up happening is that those dates that we approved don't end up being the dates that are on the school committee calendar as our meeting dates. And so I think that it's become unclear to the administrators in the building, such as the high school, about when exactly our meetings are, such that they can schedule them on every other Thursday. That was especially an issue in the fall this year.
Yeah, they'd become an issue in the fall.
We have got to find a way to have a date certain that, unless it's an emergency, like our meetings are fixed so that on those every other Thursdays that this building is available and events can be scheduled. So I don't know.
One of the things,
I don't know how to solve that problem, but it keeps happening, and I think we can hold our 19 Thursdays and let people use this building and have events.
Go ahead,
can I
Dr.
respond? So we let people use this building when the students aren't using the building. That feels like a separate maybe issue. What's going on there, and the reason that happened this fall, is because we do the school committee nights, but as part of the calendar, we plan conferences. And so in a genuine attempt to meet the expectation and the request to keep the conferences off of the school committee night, a couple school committee meetings moved in November and December last year when we worked on the calendar. We are doing this now in an effort to avoid all of that, but this moved on this calendar for that exact same reason when we were looking at all of the calendars together last year. So there were adjustments made in November because of when conferences were, because we were trying to keep the school committee night off of the conference night. And so it would help us if we were developing one calendar at a time as opposed to meetings and then a calendar, or if some of the things that we have to plan for, like conferences, aren't part of the school year calendar vote process. I understand that there might be some reluctance to do that, but my first year, I received a calendar that did not have conferences on it. We didn't put conferences on the calendar. They were established separately. I don't know why. I don't know if that was because of the pandemic. I don't know if it was because of transition and turnover. We've since tried to put all of it on in one place at one time, and we find that we end up wanting to move things because this is part of a school committee voted calendar, and we understand that there's an expectation around when things happen. So there are a lot of moving parts in a school district. There are a lot of expectations for this calendar. There are wishes that different stakeholder groups have. It's like a microcosmic example of what it's like to build a budget. There are a lot of investments in what happens on this document, and sometimes they conflict with one another. And if we have one process, or if we could separate things so that if we make a change to conferences, it doesn't require us to come back with the school committee vote with a new calendar, some of that could alleviate some of the strain of this. When this is all locked into an official calendar that we communicate well in advance, that can make that a little harder. But I also understand the importance of telling parents when conferences are going to be so they can account for that. So I'm not sure what the solution is, frankly. We've tried different ways and still haven't arrived at the solution.
All right, well, Mr. Strickland.
Yeah, I want to thank Ms. Exton for her leadership on this, and I think that one of the things we're doing tonight online for second read is a revision to BEA, which sets an April 30th deadline for us to setting the dates for school committee meetings and distributing them to principals. And we should make an effort to do this as early as possible in the calendar year. But we now have a firm policy that we're setting our meeting dates no later than April 30th. And by having that structure in place, and by carefully defining which events we view as a conflict and which ones we don't view as a conflict under this policy will make it easier for both us and the principals to schedule meetings and events.
That is a good segue to the next item on the agenda, which is number 6, review of policies. Mr. Schlickman, do you want to take us through this?
Okay, so we had, for first read of the last meeting, LBA, KF, ECAB, BBBE, KBG, EFBA, BEA, and GBEBD. That whole collection of policies that were brought forth at our previous meeting. We mentioned that anyone who wanted to bring forward any changes or adjustments to any of the proposed policies could notify us before the policy subcommittee meeting or send in any kind of further notifications that they'd like to change any of these policies to the superintendent. I haven't heard anything. If there's any folks who want to hold any of these policies or amend any of these policies as presented for second read, I will not make a bulk motion to approve on second read, and if I don't hear anybody look, okay, so
Ms. Exton, okay.
Ms. Exton wants to pull something.
Maybe we should do this by policy, just so.
Okay.
So I think it might be a little more organized, so just let me, bear with me.
You're the chair, you go run.
Yeah, okay, no, that's okay. It's a
No,
group-
no,
It's a group effort.
it's your show.
So does anyone want to talk about policy LBA, Middle School Pathway Exploration Policy? No. Does anyone want to talk about community use of school facilities, KF, as in Frank? Does anyone want to talk about access to buildings and grounds, policy ECAB? Does anyone want to talk about unexpired term fulfillment, file BBBE? Does anyone want to talk about parent advisory councils, KBG? School food and nutrition, meal modifications, file EFBA. Regular school committees, file BEA. Anyone want to talk about that? No. Online fundraising and solicitations, file GBEBD. Does anyone want to talk, you want to talk about the last one?
That's the one that I would like to hold. I have not had the opportunity to go through it and make some adjustments.
Oh, then let's not vote
That's
on it.
fine.
Okay,
We'll-
so why don't we
we'll
vote on,
vote.
so let's vote on, so Liz, here's the motion. Move that the school committee approve policies LBA, the first 7.
Yeah, LBA, KF, ECAB, BBBE, KBG, EFBA, and BEA.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Liz, do you, Ms. Diggins,
The
are you?
list is,
You got it, okay, cool. So, all right,
everything
Okay.
except GBEB, bid.
yeah, okay, so any discussion on Mr. Schlickman's motion to approve the first 7 policies? Can I have a second? Rather than get, second by Ms. Gittleson. So the motion is by Mr. Schlickman, the second is by Mrs. Gittleson. There's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Okay, so on the online fundraising and solicitations, we're going to hold that for a future meeting. And do you want to talk briefly about policies JS, JC, and JCE?
Yeah, I'll make, this is first read, so.
I know, yeah.
We went through extensively reviewing JC and JCE because these policies were written back in 2012, which is the year we instituted the buffer zone policy. And there are a lot of things in there that were unique to implementing the policy initially, which we don't need to have anymore. There are some inherent contradictions, and we wanted to align these 2 policies to what actual practice was. And because this is sort of a complicated edit, within your packet right now, you have both a red line marked up copy of the 2 policies plus a clean policy of what the policy will look like should we adopt it. And so these are brought forth for first reading.
Does anyone have any comments, questions about the first read of these 2 policies? You're comfortable with these changes, right? All right, so if anybody has any suggestions or comments, just directly, you can directly email the subcommittee chair who can't respond but can take it into account. All right, very good. All right, chair report. So I sent out an email we got 2 responses, just to let people, because this is the time of the year when people are supposed to signify their interest in the chair, vice chair, and secretary position. One person indicated their interest in being chair. Another person indicated their interest in being vice chair, although it was conditional on a conversation with another member. And then no one has expressed their interest in being secretary.
I will be happy to continue.
Now we're good. So, good. So we have 3 candidates, but there's a conversation going on about 1 role. Okay, that's all I want to report. Is there any other questions about that? Good. Superintendent's update.
Okay, hold on. Okay, brief update today. All right. We would like to congratulate Janet Carlino, who celebrated 50 years working for the Arlington Public Schools this year. We celebrated her tenure on Wednesday. Myself and Mr. Feeney went down to say hello to her right before a very busy lunch service at the high school, a few days after the anniversary of her permanent appointment to food services, which was March 8th of 50 years ago. I'm not doing that math on the fly. We had a quick celebration, some pastries, said congratulations, and then off she went for another day of lunch. And she said that it has flown by and doesn't feel at all like it has been half a century. There are a lot of relationships with organizations, with people that do not last that long in the world. So it is really something, and probably a record of some kind, which Mr. Feeney is going to look into to see if it in fact is, that she has been working with us for that long and in food services the entire time, pretty much. She also subbed for a little while her kids were little.
Nice.
That's pretty remarkable. And I also wanted to share that our students at Ottoson Middle School are doing their best to learn all that they can to take all of your seats as elected officials in town, apparently. I'm kidding. But they are practicing governing. Representatives and senators in 8th grade civics, I should put quotes around that, they were doing some mock legislating the other day, advocated for bills that they hoped would make their way into the OMS student handbook last week. Bills were researched and drafted, then brought to the floor for discussion in the House before heading over to the Senate for a final vote. Pictured here, the Senate was considering a bill that would require teachers and administrators to publish major assignments to a shared calendar of some kind. And they had all sorts of ideas about how to implement that. And we're talking about to what extent their policy should get into the weeds and details of how that would be implemented, which did not sound unlike meetings that we've had. So it was really encouraging and exciting to see them talking about and thinking about what civil service looks like in real life, in addition to some of the other work that they have done in their civics classes. I also wanted to let everybody know it's musical season. Our students spoke to this as well. Don't miss the AHS production of Jane Eyre, and it's about, not this weekend, but the weekend after that. And you can scan the QR code on the screen to buy tickets to the show or go to the high school website. A couple quick updates on some other things that are currently in progress. The Pierce principal search has been delayed due to an emergency for one of our candidates. There will be a family forum. We had to reschedule it from Wednesday to next week on Monday, and likely a decision very shortly thereafter that will be announced to the community. We hope that families at Pierce can make it to meet the candidates. They did their final round this week and at the end of last week. Also, for enrollments, there is now a projection sheet. So we do this every year around this time, once we've had some kindergarten enrollments come in, where I'll provide the enrollments for this year as well as a projection for the following school year. It shows the approved enrollments for kindergarten so far and the possible enrollments. Those are enrollments. There are people who started a registration form, but they haven't finished filling it out, so it's not fully approved yet. The numbers do account for assigned buffer zones where they are assigned. If they're not yet assigned because the application is in progress, then our system makes sort of an automatic assignment based on the buffer strategy for the year. So the goal is that we have the closest numbers we can have as registrations are coming in, and we're not sort of guessing too much at where folks are going to get assigned. That includes the graph that is actually included here on the screen as well in the projection sheet that is provided by the enrollment team, our registrar, she's a team of one, weekly. showing progress towards the previous year's final enrollment numbers. So what she's doing there is looking at last year at the same time, what was the percent total enrollment that we had at that time, and then how does the number we have now compare with that. So if we were going to have the exact same number of kids, we have this percentage of that number of students. Right now, we have 334 kindergarten enrollments that have started to be entered, which is about 76.8% of last year's final delivered total. I think that we'll come in a little lower than last year on kindergarten enrollments, but probably not dramatically lower. The buffer strategy is the same for this year as FY26, and after the first round, it's looking like we might be able to move some families who were assigned to Stratton but wanted to be at Bishop from the wait list to go to Bishop, but I'm going to wait another couple of weeks, let some more enrollments come in, and then I'll do a preliminary review at some point in May to let families know if we could move them from the wait list. And we did communicate those initial buffer decisions with families. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody? No? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Homan. Next is the consent agenda, and it is to approve warrant number 26203 dated March 3rd, 2026 for $386,927.92.
So
Motion by Mr. Schlickman, second by Ms. Sadat. All those in favor say aye.
Yeah. Aye.
All opposed, it's unanimous. Okay, subcommittee liaison, chair report. I forgot the chair report. So chair report. Okay. No, I did the chair report. What am I talking about? Budget, subcommittee report, budget.
So we met Wednesday. We had a prolonged discussion about the proposed budget, and various questions were answered about how things were set up in terms of funding and information that have been provided, and that information informed the presentation and the slides that you saw today, and I appreciate the staff's work on doing this. The other thing that we talked about was the reserve funds that the school committee controls, including the building rental fund and the foreign exchange tuition fund and some others, and that we need to have a discussion and ultimately a decision, both as a group for a school committee, but it actually reaches out broader than that to the finance committee and probably long-range plan in terms of what kind of balances we want to maintain in those accounts. Different accounts have different ways that they can be used. In the far distant past, they have been used to buffer our finances when we have undergone significant financial issues, including unexpected out-of-district tuitions or broken elevators or a variety of things. And it's going to be a balance between maintaining as low a level as possible, and yet what is the expectation on the town side for what kind of financial emergencies should we be able to cover by ourselves. And so it's a complicated discussion, and it's one that we need to have, and we figured we're going to come up with what we think is a reasonable path, and then we're going to talk to FinCom. And we can talk to school committee too, but we were going to come up with our own, what we think, and then talk to FinCom and/or long-range plan. It may be kind of a circular thing there. But it's kind of, we hear sometimes from finance committee members that, well, you have this budget, you have these reserves, you should spend them down. But they also are not happy if we come and say, our elevator broke and we have no money. So we want to get that actually expressed and have some numbers that then we are comfortable staying with for the future. So.
Thank you. Do you have a timeline for that? Just
No.
No? Okay. All right, thank you.
It's going to progress over the next few months.
Okay, sounds good. And speaking of budget, you're coming to the meeting with the FinCom on Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Curriculum, instruction, assessment, and accountability, Ms. Exton.
We met on Tuesday. We got an update on the Math Pathways Task Force. That they will be making a presentation to all of us sometime in May. They're wrapping up the task force's sort of charges. I think they said they have one more, an April meeting is their last meeting. And we are holding another meeting next Tuesday to discuss district goals, the superintendent's goals, and the superintendent evaluation process.
Good. All right, thank you. Any questions from Ms. Exton? Facilities, there's no report. Policies and procedures, we just did it.
Just note that we have approved minutes from February 26th and draft minutes from March 5th in the packet. So if anybody wants to know what we did at our last two meetings, it's all there.
Arlington High School Building Committee, we're still meeting, doing final parts of this project, but there's no report. Liaison reports? And
Community relations.
yes, I'm sorry, I skipped
No,
you.
that's okay. We haven't met since the last meeting, but in case anybody's listening, we do still have a vacant school committee appointment to the Human Rights Commission, which we are gonna post again. But the Human Rights Commission asked us to remind the community of that, so this is what I'm doing right now.
Thank you. Sorry, I skipped over you. Liaison reports? Any announcements? Any future agenda items? Motion to adjourn by,
No executive.
no, we have no, we have no executive session, no. Yeah, so there's motion to adjourn by Dr. Allison Ampe, second by Ms. Sadat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. 8:20.